Hello, techies. Welcome to the Tech Ties Africa podcast, where we'll bring you the latest stories on tech and startups in Africa. Catch us every Thursday at 10 a.m. WAT on techtidesafrica.podbean.com. Let us know what you think by giving us feedback in the comments or on our socials. Now, on with the show.
Hello, everyone, and welcome to Tech Tides Africa. This is episode 8. It's been amazing to this point. We're looking forward to continuing this, sitting down together with Kelvin and discussing really amazing topics and what is trending and happening in the tech and startup world in Africa. Kelvin, how are you?
I'm doing well. I always look forward to these conversations with you, talking about things tech in Africa. So, yeah, happy for the next one.
Yes, looking forward to the table of K&K, Karen and Kelvin. We're starting in Nigeria today, and we have a few topics that we'll be looking at. We're looking at MTN and Airtel. They're doing network sharing. I think we discussed that a little bit last week. Paystack has launched a new bank transfer app. We're seeing a little bit of trademark wars, which we'll also discuss. EdTech is back again with AltSchool launching a hybrid learning program. Verve, they're expanding their global reach with Temu, and they're becoming quite a competition for Jumia in Africa. And we're also seeing UBA having a really high record profit that they announced for 2024. But we're also seeing fraud losses, going back to the cybersecurity topic that we have been discussing. So let's get into it, Kevin, and I'll start us off with MTN. MTN and Airtel have inked a network sharing agreement in Nigeria and I think Uganda, and the aim is to cut costs for these two telecom companies. And I think we saw something that the government in Nigeria did with regulation that has encouraged telecoms to build out more infrastructure. And I think by doing this sharing of infrastructure, they're able to grow faster. So I'd like to hear what you think, sitting in Nigeria, where is this coming from and where do you think it will go?
Yeah, it's funny that this happened over the last week because we're just talking about it a week ago, where we were saying how these big telecom companies work together. And well, this is it, at least in the case of network sharing. So what's really part of the motivation for this is that these telecom companies have suffered a lot of losses, especially in Nigeria due to inflation. They're like, instead of investing all our money trying to build new infrastructure, let's share some of our infrastructure instead. And this can allow us to conserve our resources and even do a bit better using each other's resources. So that's really the main driver of this.
Yeah, and I'm waiting to see how it affects competition because I think Airtel and MTN are the largest telecoms in Nigeria, if I'm not wrong. So I would like to see what that does to competition amongst the two and also for other players in the economy. In Kenya, we see a lot of sharing, especially for smaller telecoms or ISPs. Obviously, with our bigger brands, I haven't seen that yet. So I'm waiting to see how it plays out in West Africa, Nigeria to be specific, and then see if it will be replicated in other countries.
Yeah, they probably do it, but it's not as common in Nigeria, especially with these big telecom companies. But in this particular occasion, it's about necessity, really, because the NCC, the body that regulates them, is not allowing them to increase their prices as much as they would want. They wanted a 100% increase, but the NCC only granted them a 50% increase. So in the process of trying to look for ways that they could still remain competitive, they came up with this, and let's just try and work together to help each other. These are the two biggest telecoms in Nigeria in terms of subscribers. Well, I don't think it will hurt them really, but it's just interesting seeing these big telecom companies coming together to work in some form, and I'm interested to see how this plays out. Moving forward, Paystack launched a new bank transfer app, and we are always talking about one fintech or the other every other week. But I saw an interesting post on LinkedIn from Moses Mawe. There are so many fintechs in Africa, but his argument is that a lot of them are just API reselling. So they are just a new body reselling the same APIs. So the changes you could see would be lower cost or some interesting perks here and there. But his argument is that they are not really solving any problems. So he was like, instead of doing all of this API reselling, we should focus on solving the real problems with fintech. Yeah, it was an interesting post because it was very critical. Paystack is taking a stab at making bank transfers faster. I tried to sign up on the app, but apparently you need to have an invite at the time I tried. I don't know whether it's now open to the public. I'm not really sure what the play is here because Paystack has never really offered a consumer application until now. They mostly create services for businesses. So it's very intriguing that they are making a play for consumer tech now. So just because Paystack is Paystack and the things they have achieved in B2B, I will be watching out to see what they do in this space. But I'm more on the conservative side of this because for me, it's just yet another bank transfer app that we have so many of already. So with time, they would show what their play is really. So yeah, that's what I think about this.
Yeah, I like what you've said about innovation because that was the question that I had when I saw this announcement. My question was, is there really any new innovation in what they're doing, or are they simply putting a stamp on their brand as a brand that also offers something that is in the market already? So in terms of the infrastructure, in terms of the service that it offers, I don't know that there's anything innovative. And I say that as an opinion, but I didn't see that there was anything innovative or any particular problem that they seem to be solving that other payment solutions are not solving. And I think that's a big issue that probably we haven't discussed to this point, where we're seeing a lot of payment solutions coming up. But the question is there any innovativeness in them? Any unique problem that they are solving that the solutions that are already in the market are not solving? And it made me remember of a discussion we were having in a community of founders that I am a part of. And the question was, as Africans, are we really seeing our startup ecosystem solving problems, solving real problems, and innovations coming up in Africa that are actually solving African problems? So that becomes my question with this innovation.
Yeah. And there are still real problems that are in markets. Transactions fees are still high. The new buy now, pay later trends we are seeing, or mobile loans, are still high when it comes to paying back. And of course, cross-border payments, there are still several challenges there. So these are some of the real issues in the fintech space, and you don't really see too many people tackling those issues. And of course, these are deeper issues because they also involve regulations and having a united Africa in some way or form. But those are the issues that I would feel, okay, if you're in the payment space, at some point you should take a stab at those. But I guess we'll see what Paystack's play is. And within like a few hours of launch, Paystack gets into a squabble with another company called Zap Africa, a cryptocurrency trading platform. The issue is the name Zap that Paystack chose for their product is in direct competition with Zap Africa. Paystack responded by issuing a cease-and-desist. So it was interesting because we don't really see issues like this get to like the legal angle, and Paystack bringing this legal angle is interesting. And the argument is that Zap Africa doesn't have the trademark for the name. And in fact, the name Zap is kind of a common word at this point. It's something you use to describe speed or something fast. So I don't think anybody can fully have the trademark on that name. But Paystack said they filed the trademark for this back in 2023. So this solution has been something that has been in the works for a long time. if they file that trademark all the way in 2023. So I don't know if there are squabbles like this with startups in Kenya that do go to court on some level. Of course, this is not a full-blown court case yet, but it has the potential to be depending on how each party responds.
Absolutely. I think one of the things that we learned in business school, if I can go back a little bit, is the importance of trademarking whenever you can because of issues like this. Now, in Africa, I don't think it's yet a big deal, especially when it's a name like Zap. I don't really think you can fully trademark such a name because it's a common name. Obviously, when it comes to consumer confusion, that's a thing. But one is crypto, the other is payment solutions.
Yeah.
So that might bring a bit of an issue. But being that Zap Africa is also differentiated in that it's not just Zap, it's Zap Africa, that creates some bit of protection for them. But for now, I think just to wait and see how that goes. I don't think it will go to court, but let's wait and see. Moving forward, we're back to EdTech again. It's becoming quite the thing in Africa at the moment. AltSchool is launching an in-person program in Q2 with Campus by AltSchool. So they've been offering virtual classes for software development. Now they are mixing physical and online to attract more students. So the aim of the program is to enable everyone access. They're trying to solve some of the issues that we discussed earlier in terms of access to network and connectivity for a lot of Africans. Not everyone is able to be online. Not everyone has Wi-Fi. In many countries, Wi-Fi is still not affordable. And so this allows students who are not able to access Wi-Fi to be able to get the classes that they need. Obviously, from a business perspective, this creates some issues for AltSchool in terms of costs going up, as well as finding these locations where they can have these schools. I think that becomes a challenge for them, and also seeing how they will leverage and stay profitable while doing this hybrid learning kind of situation. And I'd like to hear, do you think that this could be one of the solutions that perhaps will allow them to survive? What are your thoughts?
So I like the way AltSchool is approaching this hybrid system. So what they are doing is leveraging some of their partners and their partner spaces to facilitate these on-site learning experiences. And they are also not trying to teach their online courses offline. So what they are trying to do is a 4-month program instead of their full-blown yearly diploma program that they do online. So they are doing a soft approach to the hybrid system, because we talked about Decagon, I believe last week, that just moved away from EdTech completely. And they had a hybrid learning program at some point that didn't work out. But the way AltSchool is approaching it kind of softens the landing for them. They will definitely have to increase the cost of learning, but we see they have a lot of partnerships with DeckPoint Africa. They recently closed on with Bybit, the cryptocurrency platform. So they are leveraging on these partnerships to cushion the effects of this hybrid learning program, because it doesn't seem like they want this to be profitable from the beginning. Their main goal for this is access. So in that sense, it would work better for the learners eventually, but they still need to think about the business model. But they are not fully committing to it. That's why they are using a masterclass 3-month program instead. So I guess from the program, they would now see, okay, is there a way to make this profitable, and then double down on that. If they don't get the feedback that they are looking for, they'll probably pull the plug on this.
Yeah, I think I'm really looking forward to seeing how that goes, because it may be able to show us at least one of the solutions to EdTech in Africa, and seeing that perhaps this might be the route to being sustainable in the African market as an EdTech startup.
Yeah.
Okay, so Verve has expanded global reach with Temu, and Temu, I believe, is a Chinese company, and it's becoming a good competitor to Jumia, which I believe you are a fan of, Kelvin.
Yeah, I'm a big fan of Jumia. So anytime I see a Temu ad on YouTube, I'm skipping that ad. So yeah.
So Verve, which I have to be honest and say that I had not known that we have an African card payment solution. So this is the first time I'm hearing of Verve. And I'm seeing it has partnered with Temu, which is an e-commerce platform, as we know. And they are trying to see how they can make payments more seamless, especially because of currency exchange. And Temu, as all Chinese companies go, is looking to go ultra low on its prices, right? And the target is very budget conscious consumers. And they are partnering with Verve to see how they can make payments a lot more simple and easier when people are paying with different currencies. And I would love to hear your thoughts on that, because I know you're a lover of Jumia and you hope that they succeed in this market. I do think they have a bigger chance as Jumia, because they have, in a way that most companies have not, they have been able to figure out logistics in Africa. And I don't think Temu has figured that out yet, especially when it comes to local deliveries. I think they still have quite a long way to go. I haven't heard of them in Kenya. I don't think they are here. Jumia is in Kenya, and they have penetrated all the major towns in Kenya. I'm in Nakuru. I'm able to get my deliveries here. It's a bit more expensive than when I was in the capital, but Jumia has mastered local deliveries and the logistics of it. However, I wonder, would Verve probably in the future partner with Jumia? Have they already partnered with Jumia? So those are some of the questions that come to mind.
Yeah, so when I saw the news, I was like, this is an interesting partnership, because on the one hand, you have Verve that is a payment provider. I haven't used a Verve card personally, because most of the big banks use either MasterCard or Visa, and even the virtual card providers that some of these fintech startups use are usually Visa cards, and then a few times you see MasterCard. So Verve is one that you mostly see with smaller banks in Nigeria. So for a while on Jumia, you couldn't use Verve cards. I think as at last time I checked, you couldn't use a Verve card on Jumia. So that's why I think this is an interesting partnership. And Temu, on the other hand, is trying to penetrate e-commerce in Africa. At the moment, they are pumping in a lot of money. I don't think they are anywhere close to profitability. They are just pumping money, trying to capture the market. Long term, we would see how that strategy plays out. But having a local player like Verve that some of the smaller banks, at least in Nigeria, are using, which brings people from those banks to Temu and allows them to use their card on Temu, that has to create an interesting play for Temu and for Verve. It also increases the appeal for both platforms, because, okay, now even when I use a Verve card, I can now pay for things online. So it definitely introduces an interesting dynamic. So initially, when I would see all the ads about Temu on YouTube and I'm skipping, I'm like, these guys are everywhere. You go on Twitter, you see something about Temu, you want to watch a YouTube video, you see their ad, and they're just everywhere, really. But for me, I've not really bothered, because at the moment, it's like they're just pumping money into it. But when I did see the Verve partnership, I was like, this is an interesting place. So Jumia should definitely keep an eye out on that one. Now will be the time to support Verve cards if they didn't support it previously. Oh yeah.
With Visa cards and MasterCard, they capture a majority of the market. So it also brings to question, how big of a market has Verve already captured, right?
Yeah.
Because if their market capture is still quite low, Then I would say Jumia is still quite safe.
Yeah, Jumia is still quite safe. Like you said, they already have the logistics figured out to some extent. But why I say they would worry about it, because definitely Temu is trying to get a partnership with Visa and MasterCard, even if they haven't said it publicly, but they will definitely be trying to do that as well. And we know that Jumia is trying to be profitable at the moment. We are seeing a lot of cost-cutting measures that they are trying to put in place to make that happen. So while they have logistics figured out to some extent, they still can't move as quickly as they would want to. And then you have this competitor that seems to have an unlimited budget, and they are ready to spend that budget to capture the market. So that's why I'm like, maybe now Verve is not that big of a competition, but if they are moving for Verve, that means they are definitely trying to make a move with these other big players. So it's one to keep an eye out on.
That makes a lot of sense. While one is cutting costs, the other one is pouring money.
Yeah, we would see who succeeds in the end. So moving on, UBA recorded a record high loss of about $750,000 in 2024, but they recorded a record profit as well for $493 million. So the interesting thing about this story was that we saw a lot of Nigerian banks record a lot of losses, but a huge majority of it was due to fraud. And for me, I was like, this would be one to talk about, because we had talked about fraud, a couple of banking fraud, especially a couple of times on the podcast. And if they are recording record highs for 2024 in terms of fraud, then I wonder what is the future of cybersecurity, especially. And that's an area that I've been getting interested in recent times, as we have had conversations on the podcast. It seems that there is still a lot to figure out in that space. What are your thoughts about this?
Yeah, I was really shocked to see that actually UBA disclosed, I'll go in Naira, 4.9 billion Naira worth of transactions that were linked to fraud. It's just that only the 1.14 billion translated into actual losses, right? So 23% of those transactions that were linked to fraud are the ones that translated into actual losses. And that is a lot, especially the online portion, which was like the highest amount. It just shows how big of an opportunity there is for cybersecurity companies, and hoping to see more innovative approaches by tech companies in Africa when it comes to cybersecurity. I think I've consistently said on this podcast that beyond just fixing issues once they crop up, we need to find a way of making it a continuous learning process, and also a preventative process where we're actually preventing cybersecurity issues beyond just the firewalls that we put up. Because if you ask anyone in Kenya, it's mostly just a firewall and endpoint protection, and that is it. But we have to go beyond that. And the same way we have so much training in software development, and I think you brought up this point earlier, we need to start seeing a lot of training and a lot of effort being put towards cybersecurity experts in Africa, because right now we rely a lot on India for cybersecurity expertise. I actually think there should be cybersecurity hubs in Africa where people are consistently learning, because the thing with fraudsters is, as we are sitting down in boardroom meetings and figuring out strategies for growing our businesses, they're having strategy meetings on how to defraud people, right?
Yeah.
So as they keep growing, we need to be having people who are also sitting down and figuring out the trends and where they are going, and coming up with strategies to deal with them as they crop up, as opposed to waiting for us to be hit. Naivas supermarket was hit last year in Kenya for quite a bit of money. Most of the time, it's just that there's a lack of knowledge by our IT teams when it comes to cybersecurity. And you know what? I would actually love to see companies that just have cybersecurity experts that sit and offer virtual outsourcing services from Africa to companies around the continent. That would be a really cool thing to see.
Definitely, a cybersecurity movement is one that I talked a bit on the podcast a couple of weeks ago because we started seeing rising fraud with financial institutions. So it's definitely one that personally I'm curious myself, even though I don't really know much about that space, but I'm always learning things. So you never know. I could look into something there. But yeah, we need more solutions and more solutions developed by Africans that understand the challenges and can offer unique solutions to our financial institutions. So that's definitely something that I would be looking at some point. I know I saw Google buy out an AI cybersecurity company. So that was the first play I have seen in terms of these bigger companies acquiring a cybersecurity focused startup. But there are not so many of them that are that popular. So it's definitely an opening in market for someone to take advantage of. So we'll see what happens.
At this point, I might just start a farm because
why not? It's something to think about.
yeah, if we have AI as a service and software as a service, let's do cybersecurity as a service in Africa. And I think
Yeah,
there are companies doing that. But yeah, I totally agree. We need cost-effective solutions for the African market because the other thing is cybersecurity tends to be quite costly.
yeah.
Investing in cybersecurity and in cybersecurity talent. So yeah, I agree.
Thank you for listening to another episode of the Tech Tides Africa podcast. Remember, leave a comment or share with your friends. We'll see you next Thursday at the same time and place you get your podcast. Until then, stay well.